Accept the consent. Hello everyone, and today this is our first video, and we are all. This is me, Vineet. I have with me Rohit and Ramcharan, and today we are here to discuss the first three chapters of Bhagavad Gita. So, in this series of videos of ours, we will be discussing various aspects of the Gita, and we'll not go too much. We'll try not to go too much into the details of the strokes and all, but we would just like to see how what the Gita really talks about and how we can apply the Gita in our daily lives. So, a Gita is a text, as we all know, which was said on the battlefield of Kurukshetra by Lord Krishna to Arjun, and it contains of 18 chapters, right? And the word 18 and the number 18 has a very big significance in the Mahabharata and as well as the Gita. And there are various participants in the Gita. It's a conversation between the Gita basically lasted for 45 minutes. That's what, so 45 minutes to 1 hour long, the Gita actually lasted. And the major shloks were by Lord Krishna. And the other participants were Arjun, we have Sanjay, we have Dhritarashtra. We also have some shloks of Duryodhan in the initial chapter. And so basically, Lord Krishna is answering the queries, various queries of Arjun. And we do have Sanjay also, who is telling the king Dhritarashtra what is happening out there. Right? So we'll try to establish a kind of relationship between how our daily lives can be resolved by the very knowledge that is provided by the Lord. And this is 5,000 years ago. And Gita, for all your information, is the only text which is applicable from then till now. So it has the litmus test of Gita is that you can apply it instantly in your life, and you will not encounter any problems. And the Gita doesn't talk about any religion. Although people say that only Hindus should read Gita, it is not. It is a life manual, like how if or you must have all gone to school and you must have seen that we do have practical manuals of how to do the experiment. Similarly, Gita is a practical manual of life. If you apply Gita in your daily life, your life will be beautiful. So now I'll be handing it over to Rohit, and he will talk more about how our discussion is going to go. Rohit, you can start.
Mm. Thank you, Vineet. So I'm going to take over from here. So, as chemical engineers, we find our subject to be very interesting because all the way from fluid flow to biochemical reactors, we are basically touching on every subject. This is basically the same thing Bhagavad Gita does as well. It basically touches on all the subjects of human life, all the way from military tactics to spirituality, all the way from economics to administration. So the interesting part is almost everything is touched upon. And if you look at the very concept of Bhagavad Gita, okay, it all revolves around how Krishna, like we all know that in Mahabharata, especially in the first chapter, they talk about how superior the Kauravas were to the Pandavas in terms of the military power they had, in terms of the different generals and members they had who were there to assist Kauravas. But the one thing that actually turned the tide of battle was the wise words of Sri Krishna. It only shows the importance and the nuance of tact, the importance of using our brain in the right way. Like, even if you look at Ayurveda, for example, Ayurveda says that you don't need anything new. The only thing you require is to use the things that are at your disposal, utilize the things that you have. And that is also a very big answer to the global warming problem that we are having right now. The thing is, we are trying to expert and trying to get more than what we actually require. What we actually need to do is use the things that are at our disposal, use them in moderation. Pandavas were a perfect example of how the very good abilities were used in moderation to bring about a very good result. And it was a result of various things, all the way from spirituality to economics to politics. So almost all the different things were touched upon. And the best thing was, these were not postulates, these were not commandments, these were not commands of any sort. There was a clear debate going on between Arjuna and Sri Krishna. I mean, like a majority of Bhagavad Gita is basically a conversation or a debate between Arjuna and Sri Krishna. Questions were being asked. So we can also look at a very democratic way of finding spirituality, a very democratic way of finding the reason of living, of finding the perfect way of living. And the best part is they talk about karma yoga. Okay, I'm not getting into spirituality, but they say that doing your job is also a very important facet of life. You need not renounce everything. Doing your job and helping others lead to that renunciation is just as good. And whatever your job is, whether you are into the military or the agriculture or whatever it may be. So these are some of the things that I find to be very interesting in Bhagavad Gita. And this is like a very small introduction that I'd like to give of the topic. And then I'd like to move on to Ramcharan to give his insight on Bhagavad Gita.
Yeah, so what I found interesting in Bhagavad Gita was like when I read the first three chapters, it basically talks about the impermanence of relationships you're having now, or the impermanence of the body, right? When you're born, like when you question yourself who you are, whether you're like, why am I born only as a human? There are like many million creatures in the whole universe, and why am I only born as a human? And and you want to find a reason of your existence. Bhagavad Gita tells you everything, like why, like what you were and what you are now. And it also tells you, it's basically a science of soul, right? So the thing is, the soul, right? He clearly explains what the soul is. It's like it's not perceivable, right? It's not, it cannot be seen. And but it is the only way of transfer. For example, if you see, with if you see the case of reincarnations anyways, right? If you see the weird case of reincarnations, on which the whole ideology of the dharmic religions is based on. So the soul plays a very crucial part, because without the soul there's no reincarnation, right? So okay, let me explain how. So for example, you have suppose there were many cases reported based on reincarnation. So if so there can be two possible reasons why this happened. So one possible reason is, if a person is born in the same family. Suppose there was a case where a child had actually caught his murderer in the previous life. So if but if you see, he was not born in the same family. If he was born in the same family, he could have actually pointed towards a genetic relationship, right? But he was not born in the same family, he was born in some other family, which means that there's some other mode of transfer of information, which is basically soul. And then if you come across the way of behave, how to behave in your life, for example, the path of righteousness, what is right, what is wrong. So for example, he explains clearly what righteousness is, what you have to do in your life, and how. And he also tells that the circle of life and death is actually very what do you say, it cannot be avoided, right? Like, because for example, if you check, even Buddha tells that to get rid from the to get away from the cycle of birth and death, you need to get close to the supreme reality. Buddha didn't claim himself to be the god, right? So yeah, so the same thing, Krishna tells that there are many paths to reach, to get out of the cycle of birth and death, but you need to get close to the supreme reality. So basically the main principle is that the soul should merge with the super soul. That's the only way to get out of the cycle of birth and death. Okay, so yeah, so that's what I thought of Bhagavad Gita as. It's basically a science of soul, science to get out of the cycle of birth and death by the service of the supreme god.
So now we'll discuss the first chapter of the Gita, right? So as both so Rohit pointed out the importance of karma yoga, and Ramcharan wanted the importance of Sankhya Yoga, or that is called Brahmagyan, yeah, which is the science of the soul and the science of actions. So, and these are the two main aspects on which Gita is based on. So, we'll talk about the first three chapters in this video and the first chapter. So, let us look at the first chapter, what it is, right? And it's a very interesting chapter because it sets the tone for the rest of the Gita. So I'll give my perspective of the first chapter, then Rohit will give his perspective, and then Ramcharan will give his perspective. Similarly, we'll do it for the next two chapters. When we see the first chapter, the first shlok of the Gita was not said by Lord Krishna. It wasn't even said by Arjun. It was said by Dhritarashtra. And in that shlok, Dhritarashtra tells Sanjay, okay, now tell me what is happening in Kurukshetra between my sons and the Pandavas. So you can see the perspective of Dhritarashtra out here. He was the head of the family, he was the head of the Kuru family out there. But he made the differential between his sons and the Pandavas. So even in today's life, if we have why people say why families are distressed, because of this very simple fact that we differentiate ourselves. We make a differential as to we see the benefit of our children, our parents, but we don't see the benefit of the other parents or the other children. And he does so. You can see the mindset of Dhritarashtra out there. And then Sanjay narrates to him. Now, Sanjay is also very, what do you say, very clever in the way he does. He, invariably, he tells Dhritarashtra in a manner that, okay, so Duryodhana is going out there, and that is a sign of a loyal servant. So Sanjay is a loyal servant as to how he will answer only what his master tells him. He doesn't answer more, he doesn't answer less. And in the way, in his answering, he tells what is beneficial for his master. So in the first chapter, Sanjay constantly uses words to remind Dhritarashtra that he, like Lord of the land. So he reminds Dhritarashtra that you are the Lord of the land. You can stop this war. Only you can stop this war, right? And Dhritarashtra doesn't speak anything. He's just listening to Sanjay. And there is a very interesting conversation now. Duryodhana, yeah, he gets paranoid after seeing the Pandav army. He thinks that, oh, I've got a great army with him. We all know the story that, or not all, I think most of us must be knowing the story of how Duryodhana and Arjun go to Sri Krishna and they ask for the Yadav army. And Duryodhana asks for the Yadav army and Arjun asks only for Lord Krishna. And Duryodhana is all in his world that I have the biggest army in the entire Bharatvarsh with me. And he thinks that what these Pandavas will gather. But when he actually sees the Pandavas army, he's baffled by it. And that is when he goes out there. And there are about 8 to 10 shloks about how Duryodhana makes a comparison. Now, he's a symbol of a guy who is very nervous. Like all of us are very nervous. Yeah, let's talk about during exam or anything. Yeah, we all are nervous. Like as to how much syllabus I have covered. You think that, oh, this guy's studying so much, this guy's studying so much. And in that, to make himself less nervous or calm, he then starts praising his own army. And he tells Dronacharya that, okay, they have these many warriors, but we also have great warriors like you, Ashwathama, and all that stuff. And it's a very interesting psychology. And then Arjun starts. So initially, what happens is there's like the conch shells. Yeah, they blow the conch shells, right? So Arjun is basically telling that Arjun and Krishna, they blow their conch shells. And in that you can see very confident Arjun. Now, to start the Bhagavad Gita, also the Lord plays a mind trick on him. He's asking Arjun, "Are you ready for it?" And Arjun, the greatest warrior on earth, he's also like, "Yeah, I'm ready. Why are you asking me this question?" But that's the way the Lord is tricking him into it. And then Arjun tells Krishna, "Okay, let's go to the center of the battlefield. I just want to see how the two armies look, from the middle." And when he goes to the middle of the battlefield, he's very much he's very much filled with anxiety. He's like, oh, I cannot fight this war. I am seeing both the sides, my people itself. And then he narrates his Vishad. So the first chapter is nothing but the Vishad Yug, or the Arjun's cry. So in this chapter, he tells Sri Krishna everything, that why should I fight this battle? Uh, why should I hurt the people of my own family? And you can see there is a comparison between two sets of two mindsets. Like Dhritarashtra is very much concerned about his own children, but then Arjun tells Dhritarashtra's sons are also my brothers. So how can I hurt them? So that is a very good, I should say, two sets of people: the one who think are family oriented and the one who are self oriented. And one more thing, I would like to conclude by saying that Sri Krishna, yeah, doesn't speak a single verse in the first chapter. He just listens, and that's the quality of a good listener. It wasn't that the Lord didn't have any solution. He had a solution to Arjun's problem. But if we are in an argument, we always tend to put our point forward, and we always tend to impose a point on the others, but we don't try to listen to the other side. So that's the thing. That's the Lord he tells, and the Lord understands the problem. He understands, okay, why is this guy acting like this? And then for the next 17 chapters, the Lord speaks. So that's it from me. So now Rohit will tell.
Yeah. So if you see properly, like the course of the world has always been dictated by apocalyptic wars, especially if you take India into account. And there's a very interesting dichotomy over here. Krishna himself has stated that to establish peace, you need war. So, what is like, if you look at the first chapter is a very beautiful narration of how the battlefield is and how the battlefield is supposed to be. And although it might sound a bit colloquial, but Sanjay really hyped up everything. Like, in the first chapter, that was a really good hype up. People were really hyped after reading the first chapter. And this is very important because the intensity of the situation was being told. And as it has been told by Chanakya, that Shatru Shesham, Agni Shesham, and Drona Shesham have to be avoided at all costs. This apocalypse was the result of a very small Shatru Shesham, right? There was a very small misunderstanding that created one of the biggest apocalypses the world has ever seen. And it's not a small thing because so many different nations were involved in this. Sina Desam, which is China, Pragjyotisha Rajyam, which is Tibet, Tyaga Desham, which is Thailand, Kamboja Rajyam, which is Kabul, Gandhara Rajyam, Kamboja Rajyam. So all the way from, say Kazakhstan, like scholars like Raju Malhotra have said that all the way from Kazakhstan to present day Indonesia, all the people of these different nations were involved in Mahabharata, were involved in the war at Kurukshetra. And Vineet made a very interesting point of how Pandavas were like, there are like certain verses where after the Pandavas blew their conscience, that actually shattered the hearts of the Kauravas. Now, this is also pretty interesting. If anybody knows Mahabharata, they'll be knowing that Pandavas were pretty valiant. They had like some very good traits and characteristics, apart from the compulsive gambling habit that they had. That was the only bad thing they had. This is another interesting point, that one weakness. Like there's a saying in Telugu that the entire ocean can't drown a ship, but a small hole can. So even if you have a very small hole, that can lead to your downfall. And that is precisely what happened. And then there's a very nuanced thing that happens. Shri Krishna takes the role of a charioteer. The role of a person who's driving our vehicle is not looked upon very seriously. But we often seem to forget the beauty and the nuance of that. Because people who transport us from one place to the other are the people who know exactly where we go, what we do, and how we are supposed to do things. They understand our personality like nothing else because they know exactly where we are going. And Krishna deliberate, he could have taken like so many different rules in the war, right? He was with the Pandavas, he could have taken so many different things. I mean, he could have been ambitious, he could have gone for a better position, a better placement. But he wanted to be the charioteer. He wanted to dictate the direction in which his leader, at that time, Arjun was leading the war, right, from his side. So he wanted to dictate that direction. That was pretty interesting. And the nuance with which he was actually making them do. There were lots of tactics that were used by Krishna in order to make people do things the way they were doing. You can't just dictate, like they were all supposed to be kings. You can't just dictate them to, do this, do that. He was very tactful, he was very subtle, he was very nuanced in commanding them to do things. And that was very fun. And another thing is that when Chhatrapati Shivaji was about to get crowned, you see, Chhatrapati Shivaji never met his guru in the court. He always met his guru in a forest. He met Sarthaka Ramadas in a forest. Why did that happen? Because that was a one time where he would abandon his post as a king and meet his guru as a normal person. Similarly, even over here, Krishna was being the guru. Gu means Guha, Guru means the light. So Krishna was being the motivating force, the force that was doing the Margadarshanam. Hence, Arjun was also being very subservient, very subtle, very elegant in his approach when it comes to asking questions. So these were some of the things that I found to be very interesting. And I've not even spoken about the spirituality part. This is only the practical part. So now I'd like to move on to Ramcharan and see what he has to say about this.
Yeah, that's basically see, it basically what I found was like after reading the first chapter, basically what okay, yeah, first Sanjay speaks and then Duryodhan speaks to his teachers saying that your disciples are on the other side and so on. And when Arjun tells Krishna to lead the chariot in between the armies at first to check who are there on the other side, he just saw his friends, his teachers who are worthy of worship, and then he also saw his relatives. So after seeing all these, the very thought of fighting with them or just like in a war, right? If you have to win, you have to kill as many as possible, right? So when he saw that, he was like kind of he couldn't do anything. He was a bit shocked because he came to war thinking that he's gonna fight. That's it. He just thought that he's gonna fight. And then when he saw all those people just for a kingdom, he told Krishna that just for the kingdom I can't sacrifice all my friends and families. There's no point of ruling the having prosperities by on the corpses of these of my dear people. So then, so yeah, as pointed out by Vineet and Rohit, he was just listening. Krishna is a good listener. So that's a very, because it's a nature of he's a god after all, right? He's a creator of the universe. We consider him as a creator of the universe. So his main aim is to guide people, not just fight from their side, to guide them towards his path or towards the path of righteousness, right? So yeah, so what happened was like basically Arjun Vishad Yuga is basically the depression of Arjuna, like or the resistance of Arjuna, or the reluctance of Arjuna to fight against his own people. So for this, for this, not for the anyways, to establish righteousness, right? If any, so what basically this chapter tells is, if even if your close friends or relatives are against you, against the path of righteousness, okay, there's no harm in actually fighting against them, because you actually have to like the path of righteousness, basically the point of the whole life, right? So based on like how right you are, the whole life is based on the path of righteousness. So people, so basically if you're, even if it's your own family, as said, the soul is like the soul is very permanent, okay, the body is impermanent and the relationships are impermanent. So thus having said that, So even if your relatives, even if they're your own people who are against the path of rightness, who are like trying to like who are a threat to righteousness, there's no harm in fighting against them. That's and basically what the first chapter tells is uh, the part of good listener. Krishna didn't speak even one thing in the first. He didn't interrupt what Arjuna was thinking. So that's possibly a very good guide or a very good counselor. The property of very good counselor. So that's what I have thought about the first chapter.
Can I do a commentary on the second chapter? Like, can I start this time around?
Yeah, sure. Start.
Yeah. Actually, the second chapter is about like how Arjuna's judgment was clouded by the relations that he had. And this is very important because it talks about the importance of emotional quotient. So, this is a very perfect case of where a person with a very high intelligence quotient was crippled by his own lack of emotional quotient. Understanding of emotions, understanding how people behave was very important. And Krishna was able to successfully motivate Arjuna into doing all this, motivate Arjuna into fighting, was because he had the understanding of people. Let me give you an hypothetical situation. You have a project and you have to give a presentation for that. In the last minute, the leader of your team backs out saying that he's scared that his parents are there and he's too nervous to do it in front of them. It is a different situation, but it is still very frustrating for the person who mentored this guy, right? Imagine the frustration Krishna would have had when he sees that at the last moment, Arjuna, the leader of his army, backed out. And imagine how tactfully Krishna actually motivated Arjuna into doing all this. And if you actually look at this, he makes a very interesting commentary. And the way Krishna actually motivates Arjuna is an interesting commentary on humanity itself. He talks about the importance of valor. He talks about the importance of retaining our identity. He talks about the importance of fighting. Now, there's a very important point that we need to know. Many Puranas have always suggested that no human being is born without, like, no prani is born without doing any papam. हम एक पाप करते हैं और उस पाप के आधार पर हम एक दूसरे प्राणी का प्राण हम छीनते हैं और इसी आधार पर हम लोग अपने जीवन का भी हम अपनी जीवन बिताने लग जाते हैं. This is how we extend our lives. Our life is almost always dependent on the lives of others or on the extraction of life from others. And he says that it is a part of life. Either you win or they win. It won't actually change anything. So if you really wish to preserve yourself, you better fight for yourself. He talks about the importance of self-preservation. If you see, the Vedic concept of morality is very different. We have a quantum concept instead of binary concept. So there's no good or bad. It is just a shade of gray. So you just go with a brighter shade of gray. That's the only thing. So as engineers, we are always taught about having the most efficient systems. We are not taught about ideal systems, we are taught about efficient systems. So when Krishna advises or when Krishna tells Arjun to fight, he is basically saying that although you may not be able to get the best system out there, you will at least make the most efficient system for the disposal or for the distribution of dharma, for the propagation of dharma. So these are some very important things. First of all, I'd like to give a conclusion. He spoke about the binary nature of humanity, the binary nature of the world, the interdependence that humanity has, or each prani has with the other prani. And I won't use the word atma, I mean soul. I'd rather like to use the term atma because atma is present in every prani and not just in humans. Souls are said to be present only in humans, so that's a different terminology, which is better if avoided. The second thing that he says is the importance of crisis management. And how did he manage the crisis? With emotional quotient. Arjuna might have been the smartest guy over there, but he didn't have the right emotional solitude, the right conviction. and that led to his breakdown. And the right conviction in Krishna and the right tact with the right tact of executing it is what led Krishna to motivate Arjuna into doing that. The third thing is the importance of self-preservation. So these are some of the things that I liked about the second chapter, and that's it.
So as Rohit spoke about the second chapter, uh, second chapter basically tells there's a very beautiful, it's a very beautiful journey in the second chapter, which I find, and it's the heart of the Gita, right? So what Arjun tells is that Arjun's Vishad Yoga is over in the first chapter, and in the first two verses of the second chapter, he surrenders to the Lord. He's like, now I've told all my worries to you. Now it's up to you to guide me. And the moment he does that, Sri Krishna has gained all the trust of Arjun. So it's much like a student life as well. So as students, we often tell what this teacher is telling. ये professor क्या पढ़ा रहा है? We always have this question. We always question the professor. But if we are good students, yeah, if you want to be a good student, you should surrender completely to the professor. Doesn't matter if he's teaching right or wrong. Arjun didn't know the Bhagavad Gita was right or wrong, but he had a faith in Krishna. And once the faith was there, the transfer of knowledge was very simple, very simple. So that is what. So in our daily lives also, if let's take marriage, right? In marriage also, if the bond is not strong between a husband and wife, how much ever you try to communicate, through that bond, you will not receive it because you don't have the trust. But the moment you have trust, and the friendship of Arjun and Krishna was such that it was a very Puratan or very ancient friendship between the two, and they were having a dialogue which for some people it is very difficult to grasp. Even today, if you see Bhagavad Gita, not many people can relate to, but Arjun could relate to it because it was a bond that they shared. So the information transfer was very simple in that manner. And then in the chapter further, Krishna tells about the Sankhya Yoga. Sankhya Yoga is nothing but what Ram was telling earlier, the Brahma Gyan. That is a knowledge of the soul. So Krishna tells Arjun that you are seeing them as bodies, as bodies in this world right now. But what was your relation to them in your past life or in your future life? Do you know your relation? You just know them for this life as well, right? For example, like me, Ram, and Rohit, we know each other for this life itself, but we don't know what we were there in the past life or what we will be in the future, what our relation will be in the future. So, what is this moh you're having? So, there are two different terms. There's one is love and one is moh. So, moha is basically if you have an attachment. So, that is asakti, what the Lord tells. So, don't have attachment to them, and there is a very beautiful two strokes which I really like. And the one talks about how the body, right? Uh, how the soul, actually, the Atma, leaves one body and goes to the other body, just as you wear clothes. You change clothes daily. So just as how the soul leaves one body and takes another body, that's the nature. And the other stroke that I like is about the nature of the soul. So soul can neither can be burned, it cannot be created, it is not destroyed, it is there. And that's why Atma, the word Atma comes from Paramatma, which means a soul, a part of the Supreme Lord Himself. That is what is called Purush, that the Purush resides within the body. So Purush is nothing but the part of the Lord that resides within. So if you see all the saints, all the saints, like Rohit mentioned about Samartha Ramdas, then many of you must be knowing uh, Saint Naneshwar, and many other, Tukaram, and all these saints are actually finding the Lord within themselves. Meditation is nothing but to find the Atma within you. It is not to. It is not for any other thing. Yoga. That is what the term yoga means. And once the uh, the person gets to know that he's not any indri, he's not any sense, he's not a body, but he's just atma. So he will not have any like attachment to this body. He knows that he exists, even if the body is there or even if the body is not there. you know and that is how the journey of uh, from that is what the Sankhya essentially tells. And then he sows the seed of karma yoga also, which is the third chapter, and how you should do karam, and how you should uh, do your actions, and what is dharma. So that is what Lord tells. So that's it from me. Now Ramcharan will tell.
Yeah, so both of you covered like almost everything, every aspect. But yeah, so not only the people, which is impermanent, not only the bodies of people which is impermanent, even the attachment to material things, or what do you say? Yeah. So attachment to material things can also be a hindrance, right? So basically, Krishna makes Arjuna realize that bodies is like anything, the relationships maybe, or the physical appearance you have, everything is actually impermanent. Okay, so and then he also tells that he also tells that these bodies are impermanent, and he also tells the different features of what the soul is, right? So it cannot be as I said earlier, it cannot be perceived and all. And he also uh, gives a hint on how to get rid of this cycle of birth and death. Like, yeah, he also told there was a line where he actually said, by devotional service in the sense not only to God. Suppose if there's a saying called manav sehi madhav sev, means you serve humanity, right? You don't have to be a theist, you can also be an atheist, but serve the humanity with utmost devotion. And you try to see God in every being around you. Okay, that's the if you're able to see that, then you'll always be able to think about him again and again, and then you'll be able to reach the supreme soul. That's it. That's what I thought.
Okay, so now Rohit will start off again with the third chapter.
Okay, so I'd like to start off with a statement by Sri Krishna. Krishna tells Arjun that Arjun, fight. If you win this battle, you will rule the earth. If you lose this battle, you'll rule the heavens. So that was a very beautiful thing because it talks about us putting in our work instead of looking at the consequences. And I actually attended thanks to Vineet, I attended a class on derivatives. It was about analyzing stock markets, and there was a very similar thing that was said. But I think the way it was said was very interesting. He said that usually stock markets have, like prediction in stock markets, actually have an accuracy of 60%. Like whether it is going to go up or down, the techniques only have a 60% accuracy. And he says, what if I give you a Russian roulette? There is a pistol and there is one bullet. And you don't know if that bullet is actually going to get shot. You don't know if the empty slot is over there or the slot with the bullet is there. You need to put the gun over here and you have to fire a shot. So if you survive, you'll get $1 million. If you don't, you know what happens. So you might get $1 million in heaven. That's the thing. And he is like, it is an 83%. The accuracy of succeeding is 83%. Would any one of you still do it? Everybody said no. And then he said that exactly, we would never do it because it is not the result that matters, it is not the outcome that matters, but the quality of the process that is giving that outcome. So you always need to look at a process that helps in a sustained outcome, right? You always need to sustain your outcome. Even if you look at most of the factories are not made for 1 or 2 years. They're usually made for 30, 40 years. Everything is being seen with a very long term perspective. And that was the beauty of this one singular statement, that work, look at the process, not the product. Another thing was the importance of Guru, like the way he taught. I had attended a chanting of, uh, I had attended a Guru Ashtakam chanting, and instead of just doing the chantings, they were also teaching the meaning of each verse. And they also taught a few more verses. Adi Shankaracharya had stated once that when attraction matures, it becomes love. When love matures, it becomes devotion. When devotion matures, it becomes a belief in the God. When the God himself matures, he becomes Guru. That is why even in the Deepa Jyoti Param Jyoti Shlokam, we actually see that at the very end, they say, Brahma Jyoti Pradiptaya Guru Jyoti Namostate. So at the end of the day, it is very important to be subservient to one particular entity in order to become greater. And it is also very important to feel that after a certain point, all our all the things that we have produced are actually immaterial. What is important is the soul within. Sorry, the Atma within. And the way the importance of Karma Yoga has been explained is very beautiful. He says that if you are on the earth, if you have inherited a materialistic body, make, you should do that body justice. If you have been given a pen, make sure that you write with that pen, right? Similarly, you have to make a proper use of the body. Many people may not attain moksha, then at least make their journey towards moksha easier. Many people may not be able to lead a dharmic life because of various circumstances. Create the circumstances whereby people could lead a dharmic life. Be the harbinger of the change. If you want, like, even if you want to overthrow a monarchy, you have to be a monarch yourself. That was a very interesting thing I found in another story, which is pretty similar to this chapter. That even if you want to change, you need to become a part of the system, and that was very important. Even if you look at Sri Ram was never unaware of the circumstances he was in. He was aware of the circumstances, and he gave a very educated response. He didn't react, he responded. There's a very big difference between reaction and response. A reaction is when you give an instinctive, it's a very instinctive response to a stimulus. A response, on the other hand, is a process whereby you take an information and you give information. Engineering भाषा में बोले तो you take your manipulated variables to get the right control variable. So that's how it is. Endosa would be very happy. And and Vineet actually made a very interesting point. Like if anybody of you is into Sufism, um, Jalaluddin Rumi had said that he visited temples, he visited various sites of pilgrimages, but he said that at the end of the day, I found the Supreme Lord at the heart, at the bottom of my heart. Similarly, we all have the same Atma, but it is the manifestation of that potential that all makes a difference. It is the nature of the Atma to be infinite, but the body is finite. Then what do you do to express the infinite potential of your Atma? You use your body as much as possible within the framework of the world to change the very world, right? So that is the gist, that is the message that the third chapter wanted to convey. Now I'd like to move on to Vineet for further insight. Thank you.
No, I think actually Ram should tell, then I'll conclude it. Yeah, you can tell.
What I found interesting in this chapter is about the duties, the importance of duties one has to perform. Krishna mentions a reference called as Janaka. Janaka, have you? I guess he's a popular figure of Ramayana. Not only in Ramayana, he was also a figure of Bhagavat, where he tells the importance of marriage to Sukha, because Sukha wanted to become, he wanted to become a brahmachari itself. He wanted to become a bachelor throughout his life. He wants to practice the principles of brahmacharya. But Vyasa tells him to go and ask about the importance of marriage from Janaka. Janaka, as you know, he's known as the he's a king in form of he's actually a saint in form of king, right? So when he went and he was asking Janaka, Janaka told him everything, what duties one has to perform in his life, and importance of what marriage is in the life. So yeah, so even the same thing what Vivekananda tells is, whatever caste you're born in, do your duties as per what is bestowed upon you. You don't have to turn into you don't have to turn into higher caste or lower caste. All the people are same. All the people in the world are same. So basically what Krishna tells here is mainly the actions. So as you say, as you see that actions, right? Actions are basically they're what bested upon you by the god, right? So that's what written in your, so you should, actions don't only include what you're doing for yourself, it also includes what you're doing for humanity. Okay. So yeah, so basically third chapter basically tells about what duties are and what good duties are and what a person has to do in his life to achieve salvation. That's it. That's what I saw in the third chapter. Yeah.
So, I mean, beautifully you two have said about the third chapter, but uh, my version of the third chapter is, and this is the most important thing, an important aspect, karma yoga, right? Karma means performing your duties. Now, people say if I'm performing an action, I want to have the fruits, yeah, from it. And we today many people are focused on the fruits from what you're doing. So Krishna tells about two types of karma yogas. One is Sakam karma yoga and one is Nishkam karma yoga. So Sakam karma yoga is the karma yoga which is done if you're eyeing the fruit, and if you want the fruit, so your attachment is towards the fruit. So your failure, your success is all dependent on the fruit. Yeah, and that's why we get frustrations. That's why people today are getting frustrated because they're so much into the rat race, and they're so much focused on their being focused is good, but being focused to get that fruit is bad, right? And then Krishna tells Arjun the path of Nishkam Karma Yoga. Nishkam Karma Yoga is basically the path which we all should follow. It is just it just tells that do your duty. You know, you're doing this action. You're doing. For example, a student who's writing the exam, right? And if the student is writing the exam from the perspective to get good grades, that is Sakam Karma Yoga. But if the student is writing this exam from the perspective that it is my duty to write the exam, that is Nishkam Karma Yoga. So when you perform an action with regard to your duty, you are free from its attachment. The frustration, why the humans have frustration, why do we have emotions coming in? The reason is our actions are a result of the pleasure that we get from the fruit. But what Sri Krishna tells is be nirasakt. Nirasakt is being detached. Be detached from the fruit. Just do your actions. Do, and do it in a rightful manner, right? Today there is a problem also, in the world that many parents, yeah, they try to make a success of they try to they pressurize their kids, and they tell them, see, if you have got to be successful, you have got to learn this class, learn that class. Why? Why should you pressurize someone so much? And there are also other parents who tell their kids that I have taken admission for you in the best university. Let's say in one of the richest universities in the world. So you are so the people those the children are like, oh, good, my career is set. but that is not the way you should have your kids developed, right? So there is a lot of debate. So the basically the idea of Mahabharata is also the nurturing of your kids. The nurturing of the Pandavas and Kauravas are two types of they're basically a philosophy of how you nurture your kids as well. Nurture your kids. Pardon me. So what King Dhritarashtra does for Duryodhan is make him is I want to make my son the king. Right? That is, he doesn't focus on making him a good human being. He focuses on making him a good king, the king of Hastinapur. While Kunti is focused on building the character of her children. That's why even after so many hardships, they realize the importance uh, of the throne, and that's why they're able to carry out a good rule over it. So parents should try not to just uh, don't pave, don't make your children reach success, or pave the way for the children to success. It is for the children to choose their path, but the parents' job is to give the ability to children to choose the right path. That is what the job of the parents is, you know. And today many people, so that's what Krishna tells in the Gita, in Karma Yoga, that if you're attached to the fruits, of course you will have frustrations and all. And there is also a very beautiful verse, I think it's in the second chapter, which talks about the seasons, that today we are very happy, tomorrow, day after tomorrow, we are very sad. So Krishna tells them happiness and sadness, it's like season, it keeps on changing. But if you're substantial in nature, if you're self motivated, if if you are not attached from the happiness, and if you're not too demotivated from the sadness, that right karma, the right duty, and form your karma because of your duty. So Arjun also tells, why should I? Why you want me to wage this war if it's going to cause me bloodshed? So Krishna tells, because it is your duty, and people will look at you as an ideal and follow your steps towards it. So that is what the basic idea of karma yoga is. So and Krishna also tells that submit to me. You know, submit whatever you are doing. In that manner, you will not get the punya of that as well. So submit to me, whatever you are doing. And in the third chapter, towards the end, Krishna also tells Arjun that there is nothing for me to do in this world. I'm the Supreme Lord, but yet I'm in front of you and I'm doing my karma. For me, in this world, it's not necessary to do anything, but yet I'm in front of you, I'm doing the karma. So that's the whole karma yoga. And karma yoga is basically the, if we understand karma yoga in its full authority and imply it in our lives will be very beautiful and rich. Today also there are many parents, who are left by their children, who do so much for their children, and then they think that, oh, the children haven't done much for me. But then Krishna tells this, that there's a simple question for these parents, right? You did this out of love or for business? If you're doing this out of love, then why do you expect from your children? That is being detached. A true karma yogi will not care about what the other person will do for him. If the other person does or not is his own question, right? But it is up to you. It is up to you to perform your duties and be detached from them. Even let's say for student life, yeah, if you're talking about student life, we are very paranoid about what the exam will be. But think about this: your choice is to give the exam. Your choice ends there. You can either choose to give the exam, you can choose not to give the exam. The paper is not in your hand. The result of the paper is not in your hand. Are you setting the paper? No, you're not setting the paper. And even if we talk about our college, right? I think our college is the best example where we can have karma yoga, because we have average, right? Our grade depends on the average. So how much ever you prepare, you don't know how much the other guy has prepared. You have 18 hours for exam. So in that 18 hours, that other guy would have watched 18 episodes of Friends, or he would have studied 18 chapters altogether. You don't know that, but you have the choice with you in those 18 hours. Should I watch an episode of Friends, or should I watch, or should I do 18 chapters? That is my choice. My choice ends there. So that is the whole idea of karma yoga. It's your choice is not the result. Your choice is to do or not to do. That's it. That's the whole basic idea. And one more thing, I would like to, when we are concluding this video, I would like to tell that whenever the Bhagavad Gita is told, it is not set for Arjun. It is not set for us even, but it is set for me. So whenever you're reading the Gita, you should see that the Lord is talking to me. It's not like he's not talking to Arjun, or he's talking to me. So it's my responsibility and my duty to imply it in my life. So that is the whole idea of it. So I think all of you must have enjoyed this video and this wonderful discussion of us for the first three chapters, and we will continue to do so until the 18 chapters. And after that, also we'll have many good discussions on other scriptures and other various um, things in life. So
Yeah.
thank you, and please don't forget to subscribe our channel. That's it. And anything you can write in the comments box. Thank you all.
Thank you.